Hi guys, my name is Jennifer and we're getting near the end of my Bailey's 2017 review series. This book is from the long list, Barkskins by Annie Proulx, and even more so than all the others, it's going to be absolutely impossible for me to describe this book in the way it deserves because it's huge, about 720 pages, and it's momentous in what it achieves in that space. So I'm just gonna try to tell you some things. So the story starts in 1693 with two poor Frenchmen named René Selle and Charles Duquet who traveled to the New World, to what would later be called Canada, to become forest laborers for the same man. But René Selle marries an indigenous Mi'kmaq woman and stays in the forest chopping trees, and Charles Duquet escapes, travels the world, and becomes a businessman. And we follow many generations of their families up to the present day. And it's the story of these two families intertwined with the story of North America's shrinking forests. When Selle and Duquet arrive in New France, they're astounded at the vastness of the wilderness. All Europeans were when they first came to the New World. As we follow the Duquets, who become the Dukes, we experience the destruction of North America through the eyes of white timber tycoons. Duquet's company becomes rich beyond belief, and his descendants' goals are to strip and commodify as many forests as possible. And as we follow the Selles, we experience this same destruction through two lenses. One is through the people who were actually working in these lumber camps, because a lot of Selle's descendants are woodcutters or barkskins like he was. And then the second lens is through the eyes of North American Indians who were watching their lands and lifestyles vanish. For the most part, Barkskins is blunt. It's a project that makes the reader a witness to all these changes without lecturing you. So it just sets out, this is how so much of the world was obliterated, this is who benefited, this is who didn't. Now, people are intimidated to pick this book up, so let me both confirm and calm some of those fears. There are 10 sections in here, and some parts were boring, okay? There's a lot about trees and wood. But in general, this book is so varied that whatever's feeling like a slog is gonna pass pretty quickly. We jump from chopping trees to business deals to traveling all over the world to crazy family dramas to landscape passages. And overall, the book does feel long and sweeping. But 2 points about that. One, that's kind of the point. You dedicate your time, and as a result, you travel across continents and experience centuries of change. And two, there's something paradoxical about Barkskin's setup because each individual section is pretty zippy. Most are about 60 to 80 pages long and cover like 40 years' time. So we move briskly through these people's lives, and it's not any individual section that feels long. We meet hundreds of characters in this book, and Proulx doesn't expect you to remember most of them, so she's great at introducing new people with a few choice, strange details that mimic the way that the characters living in this dangerous, duplicitous world are constantly sizing new people up and making snap judgments. When it comes to the main characters, in general, the Dukes fare better than the Selles. The Duke descendants have some larger-than-life personalities. The Selles are also compelling, but their characterizations are a lot subtler. If you're a person who loves a good character, there are definitely some in here for you. But really, this isn't a character-driven novel. It's much more about how individual personalities and stories fit into the tapestry of history. Proulx does so many things well, and I can't do each of them justice, so I'm just gonna rattle a few off. One is that she captures the reality of death in these times. We follow characters for decades, and then suddenly they're picked off by cholera, a logging accident, childbirth, murder, a shipwreck, just stepping on a rusty nail. Like, almost every character's life ends with brutal swiftness, and it's really affecting. She also demonstrates how the rationality for cutting down the forests was constantly changing because it wasn't about reason. Humans are self-serving and will always justify their interests. Basically, we're the worst at long-term planning. Decent in the short term, not so much with the wide view. The last thing I'm going to highlight is the way she tracks the disintegration of indigenous life through René Selle's descendants. And some of them try to keep the old ways, some of them try to assimilate with white culture. Nobody wins because white people just want to clear them and everything about their history from the face of the earth. Late in the book, there's a character who goes back to try to live in the old ways, and this is what he says. When I was here before, I thought that the cells thought they were making a Mi'kmaq place again, but I did not understand. It felt unsure, as when you take up a cup of tea and put it to your mouth and find that what looked to be tea was only the shadow in the cup. And another character asks him, "Do you feel this now?" And he responds, "No, I drink the shadow now. I find it good." Two things about this part. One is that Prue does a really subtle thing throughout this novel where new materials, food, technology, and ideas will creep into later generations so that you forget that tea wasn't a thing when Charles Duquet and René Sel arrived in New France, but now their descendants casually use it as a metaphor. Secondly, and much more importantly, I was just reading along, wasn't emotional, turned the page and read the line, "I drink the shadow now," and just burst into tears, like violently lost it with no warning. Because, okay, as school children in the US, we learn about how Indians and their ways of life disappeared when settlers came. And I've studied these topics as an adult too. But after following these family histories for hundreds of pages, I felt it. I felt what I'd only thought before. I just found this moment viscerally devastating. And the line itself is haunting, that even the scraps and smoke of this old life are beautiful. Barkskins does have problems. It's great at avoiding info dumps, but some are inevitable and they're tiresome. I think the dialogue is pretty bad in general and doesn't really give you a feel for the characters. And the final section is especially underwhelming, so the book doesn't go out with a bang. None of those things hugely affected my reading, but they might be bigger problems for other readers. To wrap things up, this book can be a slog at times because it has some weaknesses and because it's unlikely that you'll be equally interested in all the different topics and characters. But it's such an achievement. Like, I haven't even scratched the surface of its complexity. I've barely talked about the writing, which at times is just piercingly beautiful. And this book changed the way that I think about North American landscapes and made me feel things that I'd only ever thought about before. Let me know what you think about Barkskins, and I'll see you soon for my next Bailey's review. Bye guys. Thanks for watching.